Well, hello, friend. Welcome to what we used to call unedited meetings, but this one's gonna have a little bit of editing, like this, and like this, and like this. Not gonna be all of that throughout the entire video, and if you've watched our recent videos, there's a lot of editing. This is more sit with us on the couch, let's talk about something business related, and hopefully you'll learn some things, you'll get an inside look at some of the things we're working on, but less like, here's a whole bunch of fancy B-roll, look how cool we are.
We love fancy B-roll.
Not in this
give
video.
them a little bit of fancy B-roll.
Okay, I just put one fancy B-roll on the thing, which is, yeah, you're gonna love it.
We're gonna call these semi-edited meetings.
Yeah.
In this meeting, we go in depth on our content audit. So basically what we wanted to share with you all is us going through every single content channel that we are using right now. Really, it's 5 content channels. It's our newsletter, our podcast, our YouTube channel, our articles on our website, and also Instagram. That's it.
Yep.
And to dive into each one of those, to just kind of take a step back in our business and ask ourselves, what's working, what's not working? Do we want to continue doing it? What's the frequency? What's the cadence? All of those questions. And our hope is that you can kind of set aside some time to watch this video with us and ask yourself these questions about your own business and your own content strategy, because so often we just continue to be in the pattern of things because we've always done it that way, rather than taking a step back and going, wait a second, is this a good use of my time and resources?
And that's why this video idea came about, was because we just get on the hamster wheel of doing things, and then we just never stop doing those things. We don't measure them a lot of times. We don't check to see if we actually want to keep doing them, which I think is so important in business when you run an intentional business like we try to do. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Okay, let me pop this open right here.
Maybe some more fancy B-roll. I'm just kidding. I'm not going to make more fancy B-roll.
Yeah, and also we hope you enjoyed the travel videos, but we know that, you know, a lot of you primarily follow this channel because you have your own business. Yeah. So we wanted to bring it back to some business content.
We really don't know why you follow this channel, but
that's a good point. That was an assumption.
Yeah.
Maybe you just like bald dudes. And if you do,
and if you searched bald dudes,
that's your prerogative.
And you picked this channel, love you for it. All right, what are we getting into?
Okay, so let's just, do you want to just like go ahead and dive in? Start with the newsletter?
Sure.
All right, let's just hop on in.
Okay.
Our email newsletter.
Yeah, this is our #1 marketing channel for our business. I would say that our email newsletter drives, at this point, almost 100% of our business revenue.
Absolutely. So let's give, for those who don't exactly know, a little bit of background. How often do we send the newsletter? How long have we been writing a newsletter? Give them the background. Yeah,
so I was actually the other day working on an article, which we'll get to articles, and I did the math, and essentially between the two of us, we have sent, not including sales emails or other things, over 800 weekly newsletters.
Wow.
Between the two of us.
That's fun.
Which is basically a cadence of 50 newsletters a year for however many years that is. Many years.
At least 5, if not more years.
Yeah, more
6 or 7 years?
Yeah, more than that for both of us. But anyway, the frequency that we use is weekly. We send emails on Mondays. We want to kind of be a fun, non-sucky way to start the week for people's inboxes, because we know your inboxes can suck to start the week. Ours can too. And that has just been our goal for email forever. But we also want to deliver value with email every Monday. We're not the type of people who do like the roundup of like a bunch of other things. It's our stories, our experiences, our thoughts, our lessons learned that we want to share every week.
Yeah, well, it's kind of interesting. So that's, I guess, a good place to start, unless you want to start with the stats. Do you want to kind of start with that for each section?
I love stats. Don't you guys love stats?
Give them some stats.
Well,
show them some graphs.
I'm here and everyone.
Just put some numbers on the screen.
Yeah, okay, so let's go with some numbers here just to give everyone.
To set the scene, we'll give you just a little bit of statistics here. So we have currently 11,700 subscribers. Yeah. Roughly.
Is that higher or lower than you thought? I'd be curious to know.
We have about a 25% average open rate, which
is very important to me, is to always keep as high of an open rate as possible. Granted, a lot of stuff technically changes with open rates, especially with all the things Apple is now recently doing with iPhones and like all that stuff. But the thing I will say that we actually didn't write on here, sorry, we probably have more stats. This is how this is gonna go, just enjoy it. Is email replies. This is typically the most important metric to me.
Yes.
There's no number that I look for. It's just when we send an email with a very clear question at the top of the email or at the bottom of the email or somewhere bolded big in the middle, if we get a good amount of replies, and for us at that 11,000 subscriber amount, 20 to 30 replies, I'm just feeling like, great, our email list is engaged. And there have been times when our email list has gotten to a place where we'll put a big bold question and like 2 people will reply. And I'm like, uh-oh, we need to prune our list, or we need to have some better email content coming out.
Yeah, I just want to say we share all of these statistics knowing that every business is different. So you might have a much smaller list and maybe your open rate is a lot higher in the 40s or 50s. You might have a much bigger list and maybe your stats are different, but we just share it so that you get context and background info.
Yep.
But yeah, I was gonna say, talking about metrics that matter to us, I think for every single content channel that you are going to put time and effort into, establishing what are the metrics that matter to you, not what you think should matter, not what business people like us tell you should matter. For you, what is gonna help you decide if that time is worth the effort? And for us, email replies is a good gauge on was it worth the effort. So the thing I wanted to get into for us to discuss moving forward,
let's do it.
Is we have experimented with a couple of different email series this year.
Yeah, so previously with our email newsletters, it was basically you wrote a newsletter to Soulful Creatives. I wrote a newsletter
for my Made Vibrant business. This was separate from Wandering Aimfully.
With my Jason Does Stuff business, it was action takers, people who wanted to take more action. I don't know why this is kind of like you could milk a cow or you could also take action.
Take action, milk a cow.
Either way. Which one are you doing? Find out this week. But Wandering Aimfully is more about how to intentionally grow your business and the lessons we're learning. And what we found is that we like having these shorter email series to keep our interest in writing things, but then also to kind of create fresh themes for our newsletter subscribers.
Yeah, and it gives people a reason to re-engage with the email. You don't have to do this, but I really like it because we all know that after a couple of weeks go by, you see the email pop up in your inbox and you might just like not engage with it. But if you see new series, it gives you a reason to pop back in.
Do you want to name a couple of the series?
That's what I got to so that you could know. We just experimented with a bunch of different ideas this year. So actually
I know a couple.
So I'm going to start with at the end of last year when we started tracking this. So we did mistakes that made us.
Yep.
So this was all about our failures and what we learned from them.
Yep.
We did our Growing Through It series, which was like our case study series.
We have a couple of those videos here on YouTube. If you haven't seen those,
if you are watching this because you like business, after this video, definitely check out the Growing Through It videos.
But if you only like bald guys, don't watch those. Actually, you could. There's a bald guy in them. In the beginning.
In the beginning.
There's a bald guy in the beginning,
very
but then
small
skip the rest.
At the end of last year, we did one called Are You Feeling This?
Yeah.
And it was all about different feelings and emotions that come up in business and how you work through them. So like, I'm feeling lost, I'm feeling not good enough. I liked the idea of that one.
Yeah.
Then we kicked off this year with what we called our 8 Cabrandments.
Yep.
And this was brand belief statements, like what makes us different. And it also encouraged people on our list to write their own brand belief statements for their business. So examples of our Cabrandments are own your weird, it's all an experiment, aim for enough.
Well, don't give them all of them. They need to be subscribed.
Well, it's already gone. Oh, goodbye.
Too bad. Which is, that brings up another point. I think that wraps up the email series thing.
No, it doesn't. Go ahead.
Okay. We use our email newsletter as more ephemeral content that may not ever be published anywhere else. We want our email newsletter to feel valuable, and we want people to look forward to getting it, not feel like, oh, this is just a blog post that I could go read on their site at any time.
Right.
We've definitely done that version of things,
right?
But we really like blog posts are long-term audience growth, Google search traffic focused. Our newsletter is every week, let's give you something fun, fresh, interesting, helpful to learn that's different from what we're writing on the articles.
Now that being said, the newsletter can also be a really great test ground for if you see things resonating, things that you might want to consolidate into an article. So for example, our current Grow It Gradually series, I could see that being a really great guide, article/guide. Guide is just a longer article on our website because people have been really resonating with it. They've been telling us it's very valuable, and it could be searchable. The two I just wanted to share with people in terms of our email newsletter series. So then we did one called Hanging with the Zooks. And that was really just what are we up to? And it was like a his and hers kind of take. So you would share like what we did during the week and I would share like how we felt about it kind of thing. And the reason I share that is because the last piece of this before we move on to the next content channel is asking ourselves, I feel like what we're doing right now is working, but what do we want to do going forward? So I think we had originally said we wanted to do the Grow It Gradually series through the end of September, or beginning of September, excuse me. Then it's the fall enrollment for our WAIM coaching program, and then what are we going to do for the newsletter for the end of the year, and what is it going to look like next year when we're traveling?
Which I think we're going to do a what does it look like at the end of each of these
Okay, so what do we?
Yeah, at the end.
So I think what we had decided was to just do the Hangin' with the Zooks format for the rest of the year. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's an easier format. This is something we tend to always try and tell our Wandering Aimfully members and anybody on our newsletter as well, which is set yourself up for success. So for us right now, we're in a really busy season of content creation, ideation, pumping things out, and like we're using lots of brain power. After our fall enrollment finishes, towards the end of the year, you know, we're also thinking about traveling full time next year, so that's a whole other ball of wax. But if that even wasn't on the table, we want a slower pace in the end of the year. The Hanging with the Zooks emails, it's a much easier, low pressure email series for us. So I think that's why that feels good to have that, you know, towards the end of the year. And we got really good feedback from people on that as well.
Which is another reason you might want to think about a series format, because you can change the series based on your own life and what kind of type of an energy flow you're in. So you can pump things up to a series that's really high value, really teaching content around your business topic. And then you can, like Jason said, for the winter, go into a series that's much more ephemeral, just what's going on in my life type of thing. And you have that flexibility.
Plus, it just keeps it fresh, you know?
Yeah. Okay. The last thing that we didn't talk about that we might spend a couple of seconds on is once we felt like we had the idea of writing a newsletter, you know, really dialed in.
Which we always had. It was just...
Well, I mean, it took probably, in those early days, it took us a while to get into the habit.
Yeah.
But then we asked ourselves, okay, what about people opting into that newsletter? How good of a job are we doing? So I think that's a part of this content audit. And I remember about a year and a half ago, we looked at our opt-in numbers and we were like, okay, we have this newsletter we're pouring all this time into. We were getting about 80 subscribers a month. And we had a good bit of traffic at the time coming to our website. So we were like, something is missing the mark here. There are opt-in forms or just people were not wanting to sign up. And that was when we decided to do a quiz.
Yeah.
So we use a software product called Interact. They're not sponsored or anything like that.
We got a link in the description.
But I had a lot of fun. I mean, it's a lot of work creating a quiz, don't get me wrong. But our subscribers went from 80 a month to about 400 plus a month. So any type of tactic where you can almost immediately quadruple your signups is pretty significant.
And we really didn't change anything of where the form was. It was all the exact same locations of, you know, instead of join our email list to like hear about our business adventures every week, to take this business, what is it, roadblock? What is it called?
Bottleneck.
Business bottleneck quiz and see what's wrong in your business. It gives the potential subscriber something to go, oh, I might have a problem in my business, or I know I do. Let me see if this quiz helps me figure that out and like gets a couple actionable things I can do. That's a lot more compelling than here's my email to sign up for yet another business email list.
The other thing we really like about a quiz is that for Wandering Aimfully specifically, we have a pretty general business. It's not that niche. Of course, it's online business owners, but as you know, online business owners have all kinds of different problems that we could solve. And we identified these 5 main problems. And the thing about a quiz is that you give them the quiz, they answer it, it basically identifies what they're struggling with the most, and then we have email content that solves that for them. So we're solving whatever particular problem they have, and then that allows them to get value right away and go, oh, these Zooks are like really helping me, and it makes them want to stay on our email list.
Yep.
So, all right.
Okay, is that it for email?
Yeah, so the audit part of that was just we're going to keep doing what we're doing. We're going to do Hanging with the Zooks for the end of the year.
Yep. And then we're going to come back at the end and do what are we doing next year.
Yeah.
Okay. The last thing on email, just one final little pin in the cap, and maybe this will be something.
It's so far away.
You can have a sip of my water here. We can share. We're married, so if you guys are like, oh, gross,
whoa,
you're sharing water.
Germs.
It's marriage. One last little thing I wanted to share was we're typically about a week ahead of schedule on our email newsletter. My personal preference would be to be many weeks ahead of our schedule, but we have so much stuff going on right now that that's just not feasible to get that far ahead. But I think we actually are in a good cadence right now.
We're in a great cadence. I like it a lot.
The only problem is the Hanging with the Zooks. We don't really tend to get far ahead because it's more of like, what did we do last week?
You can't really
so we can't really get ahead.
Yeah. So that's the
but just to give you that little tidbit, because you might think like, oh, I write my newsletter every Sunday before hitting publish for a Monday. That's okay. We've been there too, but just try and get ahead because it will give you some breathing room.
Yeah.
Little tip. By the way, this entire time, I'm literally looking at nothing. I just
then why are you doing that?
Well, because otherwise everyone's just gonna stare at my legs.
I'm in Notion.
I know you are.
Okay, moving on to content channel number 2, our podcast.
All right.
What is it all for?
We have a podcast. It's been going since we started Wandering Aimfully back in 2018. We, as of publishing this video, it will be the week we have our 100th episode of our podcast, which is cool.
Congratulations! No, this video won't be the week. It'll be the next week, because remember, we're going to do the assumptions about us for...
Yeah, I don't know what we're doing. Who knows what we're doing? 100 episodes.
No, I know that's what we're doing. I'm telling you that's what we're doing.
Okay, we'll find out.
So the week this goes up, that'll be our 99th episode week.
Next.
Do you not trust me?
No, I'm saying...
I can show it to you right now.
The 98th episode is next week. So this video goes up with the 99th episode. You're right. You got it.
Interesting.
You're right.
Interesting.
You're right. You're right. You're right.
Thank you.
You're right. Anyway, it's our 100th episode. We made a branding change about halfway, which just kind of worked out. So it was Wandering Aimfully the show, which literally didn't really mean anything. It was just the name of our business, to What Is It All For? And it's the exact same content. It's just wrapped around this idea of always asking, what is it all for in everything that you're doing in life or business or whatever you're going through.
In your content channels, which is what we're doing literally right now.
Yeah.
And we did that strategically because we thought when we launched the podcast, we launched it alongside launching the business, and Wandering Aimfully as a business didn't mean anything. It was just a name we came up with. And so we didn't want to be trying to build up brand awareness for two things at the same time, our new business and then the name of our podcast. So I still would go back and do it no differently.
Yeah.
I would, call the podcast the same thing as your new business if you're really trying to get that name to stick. And you can always rebrand the podcast, which we did 50 episodes into something that feels a little, more of an offshoot brand, which is What Is It All For?
Let's get to some stats.
So stats-wise, you might be interested to know we get around 700 downloads a week, which I think by podcast standards, that's probably really, really low in terms of like what you probably hear, because people who are...
Well, I just think it's so interesting, right? Because you think of all the big podcasts and they get like 1 million downloads of podcasts, but I would imagine the majority of podcasts get like 100 downloads a week or less or whatever. I mean, I have no idea. I don't know what the industry statistics are. We also don't care.
That's the thing. So that's what I want to talk about is let's get into metrics that matter. So one other stat that is just fun in case you're curious, all time, we have 74,338 total downloads.
Cool.
But that's pretty nuts. I'm like 70, and again, downloads, like let's all take it with a grain of salt, right? Because who knows? But I'm like, thousands of people downloading that content, taking up space on their iPhone storage.
All those cinnamon rollers, it's almost 100,000 cinnamon rollers. For those of you listening to the podcast, that means something to you.
But the main thing, I'll be honest, we don't care about any metrics of the podcast.
No.
Because the only metric we care about is, I would say, of all of our content channels, the podcast is by far the one that we get the most anecdotal feedback from. Is that fair?
I think YouTube, we would probably get more, but we haven't been consistent with YouTube.
Well, no, I'm saying, what do we?
Yeah, right now it's podcasts because we don't YouTube. But I think to your point, it's just something we really enjoy. Like I really honestly truly wish there was a better way to have a conversation with people who listen to podcasts. Like in a podcast player, you could just like send through an audio note real quick or whatever, and it like pops up as like a comment on the podcast or something cool like that. And I know that platforms have tried, it just hasn't really stuck. But we just love doing the podcast. It's a very free form bit of information. We try, and Caroline does a great job in trying to actually have us like deliver a message. If it was up to me, I would just crack stupid jokes and go down tangents all day long.
I'm like, here's an idea. Let's have some notes.
What are those?
Ooh,
again,
gross.
I'm looking at nothing. But I think that show for us, we also know, because we have the metrics that matter that tell us this, that the past launch that we did, we sent a survey to the, I think it was like 80 people who joined, 25% of them said the podcast was the way they found out about us. That to me is such an important metric because that shows us this podcast matters for our business revenue, so let's absolutely keep doing it.
So that's a huge point, and we just kind of glossed over it. I just want to underscore it.
I didn't gloss. You felt like I was glossing?
Well, I just felt like you were like, oh, by the way, 25%.
Oh, okay.
It's like, because I remember when we were doing the podcast early on for a while, I was thinking like, is this even worth the effort? Granted, so two things happened. Our setup was a lot more cumbersome, so I was like, this is a lot of effort for not a lot of feedback we're getting.
We had a 3-camera setup when we first started it, and we also did video.
So simultaneously, what we did was we lowered the barrier to record an episode.
No video, only
audio. Jason has a nice little compact audio setup now. It's great. I love it. It feels so comfortable. We go sit on the couch, we chat. Yes, there's a little bit of prep now just to make sure that it's as high value for our listeners as possible.
When you say prep, you mean notes?
I just mean notes,
Yeah.
thinking through what we want to talk about and the high points we want to hit. So there's a little bit more prep, but it just feels like we're in like our stride with it. And then simultaneously, because the barrier is so much lower, it's almost like takes no time at all for us to record now. So the consistency factor is so much better because we're consistent. You can actually see it on the graph over time of our, we'll put that on screen.
Yeah.
Semi-edited meeting.
Yeah.
You can see it over time. It's not very drastic, but you can see once we started becoming consistent, like the listenership is consistent as well. But the point I want to underscore is that we also simultaneously made sure that there was a way for us to even qualitatively figure out if it was moving the needle for us revenue-wise.
Yeah.
And the way we did that was just a survey. When anyone joins our coaching program and buys our product, we have a survey right there, and they can answer a couple of questions. One of those questions is, which of these do you think contributed most to you wanting to purchase our coaching program? Our podcast is one of those answers. And as Jason said, it's what, 20% or 25%?
Yeah, 25%, I think. Yeah.
25% is pretty substantial. And so that just allows us to see, okay, this is actually working for people to build trust with us, for people to build an emotional connection with us, to see how we teach.
Yeah, it's also for us, it's a very low barrier entry content thing that we can do. So
Exactly.
it's why
because we made it that way.
Yeah, it's why it's second on the list. Like email for us is the one that's like a non-negotiable. We're gonna send out an email newsletter unless something really terrible is going on and we can't do it. We're gonna send an email out every single week. That is just like we have to do that to run our business. The second thing on this list, and that's why we're going in this order, is the podcast is second most important because it's very low barrier entry to record, as we said. It's fun for us to do. We really like it.
Love
and
it.
the anecdotal discussion that happens around it, you guys who listen to it seem to love it as well. And then the fourth thing is that it actually does contribute to business revenue. So that's why our podcast is important.
Okay.
Is that the last thing on podcast?
Well, it's just sort of like, anything we want to change, anything we think we could do better?
Oh, the one thing I did want to bring up here, because again, we brought up the numbers of this. So 700 downloads a week of the podcast. I don't know if that sounds high or low to you. Again, like these numbers, we're just sharing them because we want to give the real look at what it looks like. Do we want to quantify the size of our business so that people understand what those numbers can relate to in like a revenue standpoint?
Like share our revenue numbers?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So Wandering Aimfully basically makes $250,000 a year. Let's see, that's like $20,000 some odd dollars a month is how much it makes. So if we have a podcast that gets 700 downloads a week and that contributes to 25% of $250,000 a year, which is?
$100,000?
I don't think so. $75,000? I could use a calculator, but again, I've got nothing on my screen. Anyway, you guys at home are
Wait,
quick
can I
enough.
tell you the math that my brain did?
Sure.
It was like,
I'm going to
it was
have
like
put it up on screen to be correct.
250,000. I was like, ooh, that's
I'll
a
do it
25.
right.
And then it was like 25%. And then my brain was like, ooh, those match up. Divide.
To be honest,
One.
25% of 250 is a weird, like
What is
that's
it?
not like normal math. It's 62,000.
Ew.
Yeah. So, but to say that our small podcast contributes that amount of money to our business, that is a huge win. That is fantastic. So the point I was getting to is, do we care to grow our podcast? Do we want the numbers to be bigger? And the answer is no. Because
Well,
the
especially because in our launches,
Yeah.
going back to how much money, that revenue number that Jason was talking about, $250,000 a quarter, like that's enough. We're at our place where that's enough money. So if we were trying to do $1 million in revenue for the arbitrary reason that people do $1 million in revenue so that they can say that, maybe we would go, oh, we know the podcast is moving the needle. Let's dial the podcast up and try to get those numbers up. That's why you do this, because you can start to see where are the things contributing, and then you know what the kind of like nozzles you want to, like
twist those nozzles.
No, not nozzles.
Yeah, twist those nozzles.
Levers. What levers you want to tweak.
Or milking a cow. Do it again.
My cow's like,
poor
ow,
cow.
ow.
Yeah, my teats. What? That's what they're called, isn't it? Careful on your hair. Your hair. Well, hello. We had a little bit of mic technical difficulties.
We're back.
We handled it like champions. Okay, that wrapped up the podcast section perfectly. Let's get into YouTube.
Yes.
Where we are right here, where we all live.
That's where you are.
Yeah.
That's where we are. So YouTube is a funny one because First, some stats.
Let's do some stats.
We have been making videos since March of 2018 when we started this channel, along
Yep.
with our Wandering Aimfully business.
Oh, we should have looked up total videos that we've done.
Yeah.
I have a
don't.
computer. Let me see if I can
Oh,
find
do you
that.
want to do something on your computer?
Let's see.
Meanwhile, I will share that we have accrued 246,452 views.
You didn't even mention I have my AirPods in.
The whole time you did?
No, just now, because I was
Oh.
just listening back to the footage. What did you say? Sorry.
It's okay. 246,452 views.
Is that more or less than you thought?
It is more than I thought for the amount of, because we have 6,671 subscribers. Hey, if you're subscribed, thank you for being a subscriber. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. We're making videos again, as you can see. Babe, I think that somewhere in the dashboard it would tell you how many videos that you have. You counted?
110 videos.
I think it would probably tell you in your dashboard.
Well, if it does, I don't know where to find it. That's how much we know about YouTube. Buy our YouTube course.
Yeah. So
Don't buy our YouTube
over
course.
100 videos.
We don't have a YouTube course.
That's cute.
100 videos in just over, what, 3 years, 4 years? How many
Yeah.
years is that?
3 years. But the important thing to note is we never had a YouTube strategy. So except when we launched Wandering Aimfully, we did want to use YouTube to get people excited, and which that did work as a strategy. We tried to post weekly on YouTube when we were launching, and that did work. But then after we got things going, we had to pick and choose where our time and attention went. And as Jason mentioned, newsletter first, podcast second. YouTube was always the one that kind of fell to the bottom of the list.
Yep.
But now that we know that video is going to be back on the docket for when we travel, we thought to ourselves, why don't we try to flex the video making muscle again?
Yeah.
Get back into a weekly schedule. Sometimes it's more edited videos, as you have seen the past couple of weeks with the travel videos. Sometimes we're going to be doing more informal stuff like this. But the simple goal for us right now is just to get back in a rhythm of publishing every week, and so that we can. It's really about the process at this point, so that we can iron out the process.
That's what I was going to say. It's actually most important for us to have a process that we can use and reuse that we like for creating videos, because I had a whole other business before this where I made lots of videos every single day for many years, and it was not fun. And then we started making some videos together, and especially at the beginning of Wandering Aimfully, made videos together. And that was also not fun. And so the whole idea is that we want video to be fun, we want to enjoy it, we want to have as much fun making the videos as you hopefully have watching the videos. Like this type of video is not that fun, but for the rest of those videos and for next year's videos, we just wanted to build up a process where we could work on a video together, figure out how the division of labor happens for the video. So like I typically do all the gear and like setup and recording, and then all the editing. And Caroline does the pre-production, the scripting, and then all the graphics and all those things. And then we really work together on the edit as well to like kind of have that all come together. And then, you know, that's basically how it works. So
Yeah.
it's just been a point of friction for us of making that happen, because we run into this problem. And if you work with a partner, you know this happens very often. And if you don't, then you probably don't know about this, but you have two directors essentially is what becomes the issue. And
Two very creative people with two very distinct visions.
yeah.
And trying to marry those visions can be really hard.
Yeah, for sure. And it is definitely something that has been difficult. It was even difficult last week.
Yeah.
So it's something that we are continually working on. We will probably continue to work on. We're gonna have a whole set of challenges next year, which we'll get to, and what we're doing with YouTube next year.
And that's why we're doing it, is because the last thing we want to be doing when we're making videos and traveling around the world is fighting about making videos traveling
Yeah.
around the world. That is not, we're not about that at all. So and we know that it's not going to be all smooth sailing, but the goal is to have a process a little bit better dialed in, so that that opportunities for friction are so much less. And I don't know about you, but I mean, we've been doing weekly videos for like a month now. We've learned every single video, we learn like a huge amount in terms of how to make it more frictionless.
More frictionless.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the interesting part for us when it comes to YouTube, granted it's third on this list of like most important marketing channels for us, I'd argue that it's third most important right now, but like a year ago, if you would have asked us, we would have been like, it's at the very bottom. It has no metrics that matter. That's the interesting part for us with YouTube. We don't care about amount of traffic that it sends. We know that the way that people find our videos is usually through, if they stumble across Wandering Aimfully, or they find our podcast, they find us on Instagram, or someone forwards them our newsletter, and then they start just doing some digging, and then, oh, they find a video of us that pops up. Because we have very few videos that are actually bringing organic traffic to people. We have a little Squarespace series that does that. But otherwise, it's someone actually actively finding our channel and then going down the rabbit hole of videos. And for that, the only metric that matter is that they ended up enjoying the content and who we are. And so
like comments would be like,
yeah,
one. I like
comments,
that a little bit.
Likes, I guess, but again, that's not something we can totally control as much. So yeah.
So even though we're not actively trying to bring in more subscribers, we've talked a lot about is there a goal number in mind for a number of subscribers that we would like to hit. Again, we're not actively pursuing that number, but we do see that the number does grow, even if it's growing slowly. And the interesting thing that we've talked about that we want to share with you all is, I think people might be surprised to know that we're not trying to grow to 100. It's not that we're not trying to grow to 100,000 subscribers. I would like to actively avoid growing to 100, even 50,000 subscribers. Like my number in my head is like, I want to top off at like 30,000 subscribers.
Yeah, we talked about this before recording this because we've actually never really sat down and like define these numbers. We've both just been on the same page with like, we do not care about getting a big channel on YouTube. That is not at all why we're doing this. So,
I don't want that many eyeballs on me. I don't want that many like weird comments. I don't want it.
We just like the space or like the size of our YouTube channel right now is great, and that there is a little bit of room to go. So those numbers are specifically, what did we say?
30,000 subscribers would be like our upper point, and 5,000. And if we got 5,000 views on a video, that would be like
to me that's like if we got 10 times the amount of comments on a video, that would be a lot, but it would be manageable. And we'll get to Instagram in a minute, but I have the same feelings there, which is I want to be able to reply to every comment. That's me on every single comment. And it's not going to be surprising to you when you scroll down, look at the comments, and there's only 14. Yeah, I can reply to 14 comments. It's not that difficult. But what we don't have interest in is getting something that's so big that then it's not manageable. And for what reason? Like, we do not care about being famous on YouTube. It does not matter to us. We just want to have a fun outlet of creative content that is helpful and useful and entertaining, and that we can also kind of create some conversation with.
And you might be wondering like, oh, okay, well, you only have 6,000 subscribers. Like, why at this point, when you're so at the beginning, is it important to set that upper limit at 30 or saying what you don't want? And I just would venture to say, I think it's because I think at any point in your journey, it's important to set that upper limit, because what it does is it reminds you to not get in the mindless pursuit of more. Because if you don't say, what is that upper limit? What is enough? So to speak, 30,000 subscribers would be more than enough. If you never set that upper limit, you're gonna find yourself, because it's our human nature, you're gonna find yourself in the pursuit of more, and you're not gonna realize you're doing it. Yeah. So you're gonna be like, oh, but I gotta get more. I want at least 1,000 views on that, blah, blah, blah. And it's just gonna snowball without ever having in the back of your mind, like, oh, by the way, like, we've got plenty of room to go before we hit 30,000. And like, we're, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, we don't need to be on the treadmill, the hedonic treadmill, so to speak.
Okay, does that wrap up YouTube?
I think that wraps up YouTube.
Let's do a very friendly, loving mic check.
Great.
How's your mic look?
Just a little hairy.
Oh, it looks good though. Yeah. How's mine look?
Great.
Fantastic. We worked through that perfectly.
The last thing I did want to say about YouTube is...
Oh, dang it. I thought we just wrapped it up.
I'm sorry. Anything that we want to change about how we're doing it, or...
Oh, I mean, I think maybe just to give you an interest or a idea of what we're thinking, which I said at the beginning, I believe, which is a business video and a travel related video, because we plan on traveling full time next year. So just weekly is kind of the cadence that we're thinking of, and that could change. Like, we could drop the business parts and maybe just do travel videos every 2 weeks. But I think that's kind of our goal right now.
So when you told me travel video, just so that we're clear, because it's a little confusing, publishing every week.
Yes.
Alternating between a travel focused video and a business focused video.
Yes.
But you were talking, I thought you meant for next year.
Even now, yeah.
You're talking about even now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, and also, I think what we had told ourselves is we were going to do a video a week leading up to our fall enrollment, just to get a little bit of momentum going here on YouTube. And then if we get really busy, or we're just exhausted after the enrollment, we can take that time off and not do videos, because we also going to have a lot of stuff going on with packing up our house and selling all of our things.
I could see a couple of fun videos with that, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, we'll figure that out. You'll see how it goes.
I just always want to make sure, this is going back to what is it all for, I want to make sure that we always remember that we're a business channel first, and not a travel channel.
Look at this. See it?
Wow.
We talked about this on a video that I don't think got published.
I'm so sorry.
When the sleeve gets flipped up and you look like a sleeve idiot for a whole video. Okay.
Going back to the very important statement I was saying before I was interrupted with your sleeve fiasco.
But
did you see how bad it looked?
So glad we
Yeah,
avoided that.
Gross.
That
I can't
would've
believe
been
you guys
headlines
even
everywhere.
saw that. Headlines everywhere. Is I want to make sure we always remember that we're a business channel first and not a travel channel.
Yeah.
So as engaging and enticing and compelling as the travel content is, I don't want to back ourselves into a corner where then we have an influx of people who are only interested in our travel journey. So that's why when we talk about travel, we talk about it through the lens of our business, our online business is what has allowed us to set this dream and actually make it a reality because we have location independent businesses. So again, it's like travel through the lens of online business.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lose sight of that.
Okay, let's move to articles.
Moving on to articles.
We have articles and Instagram left.
I don't really have stats for you on articles because I don't think you give me any traffic numbers. But what I will tell you that is interesting stats-wise is that we published an article in April of last year.
Well, do we want to start? Well, I guess that's stats-wise. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. You're doing great.
Thank you. We published an article in April of last year, and it was our online business checklist article. And it was basically this like 5-step framework of how to improve your online business. And when we published it, didn't do very much, crickets, which we knew is the case always when you publish an article. But it just started getting some organic traffic from Google. So I think you told me it was on the 4th page of Google, which is not saying much, but you can see it moving up.
Yeah, it's gone from like 50th page in search results for online business checklist to now 4th page, which is a big leap, which is great. And that is what we think of when we think of these articles is we're writing the article now so that a year or 2 from now, because that's just what we've seen over time, this article will be bringing in organic traffic and people to our site who are very qualified people looking at the content that we create.
So it's literally taken 16 months for it to have any sort of movement. And that is what we often see with our articles. And the thing that we try to tell all of our members, and it's so hard to really hit this point home, is when you write articles, you will not see the payoff right away.
Yeah.
You won't. But you might see it in 2 years. But the payoff, the return on that investment of time is the magic of online business, which is that suddenly you will have a fire hose of traffic that is coming to your site that you can do all kinds of things with. You can, optimize for the quiz. Like the only reason we were able to do that quiz and get go from 80 subscribers a month to 400 email subscribers a month is because we had traffic to play with. So we could see, okay, what if we change this opt-in? What if we add a quiz? Like you have something to work with there. So every moment that we can spare to spend on articles, I know is a moment that is well spent. It's just that they take so darn long to do.
Which gets us to the goal this year was to publish 12 articles, so 1 article per month. And our articles, I mean, at the minimum, they're 3,000 words. So these are very lengthy articles. The one I'm working on now, I think last check, it was like 8,000 words. And it's gonna have to be reduced a little bit, but like,
our thing is always like, is it bookmark worthy?
Yeah,
is someone gonna land on it and be like, oh, I need to save this forever?
We want these to be like the tab you keep open because you just keep going back to it to like keep either finish reading it or you're like, oh, I need to like implement all these different things. So out of those 12, what do we say? We have 4 published or 5?
5.
So we have 5 published, and that is to just be really honest with you. As of recording this video, it is the 8th month of the year, which means we are 3 months behind on article publishing. And that happens. And that's just to say that this part of our full content strategy, articles and planning for them to get traction a couple years from now, it's okay if that just takes a little bit longer. But the key is we also had 100 other articles on our site already that have been driving traffic. So if we had no articles and no organic traffic, guess what would have been almost first on this list?
Articles.
Getting the articles published and done. But because we already have them, I'm okay with my schedule because I'm pretty much the one who does all the article work. Okay, I'm just gonna kick this can down the road a little bit further. But I do also feel like I can get in the zone with some of these articles, and so I could see myself after our fall launch, maybe cranking through a couple and still hitting that 12 number, but if I don't, it's okay because we still have plenty of articles working.
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to say that I don't think we touched on at the beginning of this video is all of these content channels, it's just the 2 of us. So we don't outsource any, well, that's not true. We do a little bit of outsourcing with
For the articles?
For the articles.
We just started trying this. We have the lovely Pam, hello Pam,
Yeah.
who has been working on helping me get the first draft of an article from a coaching session that we had recorded. And that's just like a whole new workflow I wanted to try. And it's been awesome. Pam, you've been amazing. That's just given me a really good first draft so that I don't have to go through and rewrite everything, either from watching the session or just from memory.
But we don't have any podcast editors. We don't have any YouTube editors. We don't have any editors in general.
We have you.
With me.
Yeah.
I wanted to share that because we do that intentionally because we just don't like managing people very much. And so that's a choice that we make in our business. But we also know that if we're not going to outsource people, we might have much more limitations on the amount of content we can produce, and we have to be okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you might be like, oh, I really like managing a team and I want to be able to collaborate with people and that energizes me. And so your content expectations for yourself and for your business might be different than ours because you might be able to simply make more based on having a team. And I just wanted to mention that.
Also, nothing. Just a reminder.
Great. Moving on to our final content channel, which is Instant and Gram. This is our only social media channel. We don't post on Twitter. We don't post on TikTok. We just do Instagram.
We don't use Pinterest.
And we only do Instagram like in little spurts throughout the year, which is like a new thing for us, but it is working just fine.
Yeah.
A couple of stats. So we, when we started January of 2021 this year, at the beginning of the year, we had 4,745 followers, and we now have 7,113 followers.
That's a pretty big leap.
That's definitely the biggest leap since our account has been live, and it is almost 100% related to Reels.
It's also a 50% leap. 57% leap.
That's
something
cool.
like that. Yeah. I mean, that's pretty awesome. And did you say why, or did we go into math?
We
went into the math
We
zone?
went into math help.
Yeah.
Math support.
Math Blaster? Is that what it was called?
Loved Math Blaster.
I thought it was.
What a nerd.
I thought it was a throwback. Yeah.
If I could play, literally, if I would pay money to play Math Blaster right now.
Oh, you could play. There's definitely a Math Blaster
I'm looking
online.
it up after this.
For sure.
Anyway, so we in the spring decided to finally try Reels just for fun. I was getting really bored with our social media, and I held off.
I don't think you said this. You pretty much run our Instagram
Oh, I
account.
run our Instagram.
Yeah.
I had held off for so long, and I was like, I don't want to get into this thing. And then I finally hit this point where I was like, you know what? It's not going anywhere. I don't like for huge features to come along and then to not have any interest in them because I'm a little bit afraid that like
you're gonna get passed.
You're gonna get passed at some point. So I think a little bit of being a digital marketer is you gotta keep up your skill set and your tools a little bit. So I just hopped in it, and before I knew it, I was having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
And that's why I kept doing it. And literally, the jumps in our followers had to do with a couple of viral reels that we had. So one of them, our first viral reel, has amassed 240,000 views.
Whoa.
Which for a 4,000 at the time, an account that had 4,000 followers.
Cool.
That's pretty nuts.
Yeah, and it's business content, so it's not like we're like throwing cakes at each other or something stupid. You know what I mean? Like.
Right. We were dancing though.
Yeah, we were dancing, but it was business dancing.
But the interesting thing that Jason wanted to point it out that I do think will help people is that was our 16th reel that we posted.
How about that?
So.
And none of them were even close.
None of them before that had even come. Yeah, I'm talking like maybe 2,000 views compared to 250,000 views.
Yeah.
And it was just, I had committed that I wasn't doing it for the result, I was doing it for the process. I was doing it to flex my creativity. I was doing it to try out to learn a new skill of like the video tools. I was doing it, I started really loving the idea of pairing the audio with the visual as the thing of creativity. I had no intention of any of them doing more than just the 2,000 views we normally get, which by the way is better than the impressions that you might get on just a static post a lot of times.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, we had this viral reel, and that got us a lot of followers. I think another key part of, I'm so grateful, because we were dancing and being silly in that reel, but the text on screen was an intentional online business message.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that we did that and didn't just try to go for dancing's sake in order to get followers, because the people who did end up following us, I think were qualified leads, basically.
Yeah. We also have seen other people who've had like viral reels or whatever, and like the very first line of the caption is like, follow my account. And we didn't do any of that. So anybody who followed, they had to intentionally click through to our account, make sure they liked what we were up to, hit that follow button. So it wasn't just like this easy, mindless follow. These are people who actually said, okay, I think I like these people. Click through like, oh, okay, I do like these people, and then they would click follow.
This is a thing that we say often, which is the art of making it hard.
Lol.
And then we lol. But it's just making a little bit of friction for someone to follow you, make sure that they're qualified. I think we have a podcast episode on that.
We do have a podcast episode
so look for the art of making it hard, lol.
Yeah.
And then 2 weeks after we had a viral reel, we went off social for 3 months, and we did that intentionally. I told Jason, I was like, well, first of all,
I like how we call it social. It's just Instagram. It's just like always what we say. It's fine.
But after that viral reel, this is another scenario with like the 100,000 YouTube subscriber things where I was like, I don't like how fast this is growing.
Yeah.
I want to throttle it back a little bit because I just like to grow slowly.
Well, yeah, and you can imagine, like, again, you're the one who manages that account, but you get 50 DMs on some, like, it's a lot to keep up with. Yeah.
And also, I don't want people there just because they were like, oh, this was funny, and now I want like more content from them all the time. So when we came back after a 3-month hiatus, we got a bunch of unfollows, which I was like happy to get every single one of those unfollows, because a lot of those people who came from the reel probably forgot they followed us. Then they saw us in their feed and they were like, oh, I didn't really want to follow. And I'm like, great. Then,
get out of here.
Get out of here.
Get out of here.
And so, but then our second or third reel back
popped off a little bit. Not as much. 50,000?
50,000 views this reel has. But truthfully, if you are not seeing any results on social, I know you probably don't want to hear this on Instagram. I know you probably don't want to hear this because a lot of people are saying it. Give reels a try. And
do it your way.
Do it your way.
I think that's the other thing. Like, you don't have to do the pointing. You don't have to do the dancing. Like, you could come up with your own way that you do it. And also don't do it just to game Instagram reels to get a bunch of numbers.
Commit to the process of it, like just as an experiment. Like just say, I'm gonna post one every other day for a month or whatever works with your schedule, and just see.
Yeah.
And so right now we're back on Instagram. Again, we're leading up to the fall enrollment. I find that is a good time to connect with new people who are in our audience. They get to DM with me personally, like we form relationships, form connections, help them with their businesses.
What's our content cadence?
Right now, I'm just aiming for 3 posts a week.
3 posts a week being a post?
It's just checkerboards back and forth.
Got
so it alternates between a graphic or an illustration or a static carousel and a reel. So just like a checkerboard pattern. I aim for 3 a week, and I'll probably up that to 1 a day 2 weeks before our launch. And during the launch, I'll probably do daily.
Cool.
And I think that's manageable because I have a process.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all of our content stuff. That's our audit.
That's our audit. So no big real changes. I just think it's good to take a step back and.
Yeah, I think had we filmed this video 1 year into Wandering Aimfully or 6 months into Wandering Aimfully, we would have a lot of changes we could have shared. We just didn't think to make this video until now. So that's why you're kind of getting the version of like, yeah, just keep doing what we're doing, is because we went through the muddy waters of all of these things multiple times over and got to this place now 3 years later where, yeah, it feels like we got a pretty good grip on all this stuff and we know what we're doing, we know what our plans are. And you can even see, like, we take breaks from things. We don't have the articles all published in the way that we want. We're only a week ahead on our newsletters. Like, we don't have this like perfectly polished content factory where everything just churns out automatically. It does take a lot of effort. It does take breaks. It does take stopping at certain times because you don't want an immense amount of growth, which is such a privileged place to be, we understand, but also it's an intentional place to be as well, so that you're growing your business the way you want.
And I think the most important thing is, as I look at these 5 channels, I really like creating what we're doing in each channel. And we've changed things around until we got to that place, because it wasn't always that way. Do you enjoy the articles process?
I actually do enjoy the articles process. I find it very interesting that I think most people would be like, oh, articles are dead. Like, no one reads long form articles anymore. And I actually disagree with that, because I end up finding long form articles on things like, I was doing research on mics, just as an example.
Mic check.
And I wanted a long form article where someone wasn't just like, here's the mic, here are the features, here's what I think. It was like, no, I tested it for a month, and then I tested it for 3 months, and then I tested it in this scenario. And it was really helpful to read through all that stuff, just an example. And so I know that someone who is looking for an article, let's say on a content strategy, like what we're talking about now, or the online business checklist, let's do that. Someone who's looking for an online business checklist, they've probably read all the crappy short ones. They're like, the 25 things you need to do in your business. And they're just all really not helpful, surface level things. Ours is in depth. Ours is proven. Ours are the things that actually matter to build an intentional business. So when someone stumbles across those, they go, yeah, this is great. And also, I think that I tend to like push a lot of my personality through writing than maybe more than a lot of people do. And that's just through the habit of writing a ton of stuff for many years.
It's
so
in your
I enjoy
wheelhouse.
that. Yeah, I enjoy that.
Yeah.
It's fun for me.
All right, the last thing that we'll talk about before we sign off
Let's do it.
on the semi-edited video.
Yeah.
Do we think that
Do you have any edits you want to throw in real quick?
bing, bong, bloop.
Cool.
In general, as we look at this strategy,
I'm just going to close it. I'm just going to close it.
It's literally done nothing.
I have done nothing. I did 2 calculations.
It's like you putting on glasses and being like, I'm an accountant. It's like, no,
Yeah.
just because you have a laptop doesn't mean you're a businessman.
Yeah.
Do we think we can maintain this strategy next year while we travel?
Yeah,
What
like
do we think think we might have to
Let's
give?
do the future of kind of all of these things.
Okay.
So let's start with newsletter. Newsletter to me is just it's a non-negotiable. We have to do a newsletter every
Right.
single week. I think next
But
year.
my question is, are we going to do any travel stuff in the newsletter?
Right. I think next year it is going to be some travel stuff added in. I think if I really had to guess, it would be maybe a couple weeks delayed because we don't really want to ever give out like exactly where we are. Here's what we were doing, and maybe like here's what we accomplished. Also, like here are the places that we saw or like the fun things we did.
Okay.
I kind of think for almost all of next year, that's going to be our newsletter.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Business tip and a travel recap.
Yeah.
Great.
I think it'd be fun. You guys think it'd be fun? You know, there's no way-
Subscribe.
Yeah.
To our
Don't do
newsletter.
that. Don't do that. Oh, to our newsletter.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Podcast.
The podcast for me, I am so excited to keep
We're good
doing.
to go.
We've got a very minimal setup, as Caroline talked about. I've got 2 handheld mics, a little audio recorder. We can sit on a couch, super comfortable. I think it sounds really good. I'm really happy with that. And I'm actually just, I think our podcast is going to become mostly the preamble part, which is what we have now. Next year is like the majority of the podcast, but we'll see because I know you definitely want to still give like helpful business information.
Yeah.
But I think there's going to be so many stories next year. Like right now, this year, and for those of you,
True. It's
like,
going to be a lot more.
we're just most of us not doing a lot of things. So like you don't have a lot of stories to tell. Next year, if we get to travel, we're going to have so many stories to tell.
That's true.
I could see our podcast being 6 hours every week, you know? Who wouldn't want that?
Everyone wants it.
So yeah, we'll
Give us
continue the
more.
podcast every week.
YouTube. Like we said, probably a recap, like probably a travel video every 2 weeks of where we've been,
Yeah.
like a travel vlog, if you will.
Yeah.
And then a sit-down business video.
Can I tell them about the members only video I want to do?
Uh-huh. Yeah, you can mention it.
So the one thing that I want to do, which I think I would just take on myself and just do it, is a monthly income report traveling and working full time for our members only.
Not an income report. And what you're spending, not what you're making.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, spending report. I mean, maybe we would throw revenue in there as well, just
Sure.
like have it.
But like, just to be clear, it's not about the money we're making. It's
Yeah,
about the money we're
You're
losing.
spending. Yeah, exactly. I just think I would love to watch that content myself. Like I would love to find a channel right now of someone who has been traveling and like, okay, here's how much my business makes. Here's how much, it costs for us to live in these 3 places. This was our food costs. This was our transportation. These were our unexpected costs. I would find that so interesting. So I want to put together a monthly video recapping what the previous month was like for our members. So I think we're going to have like a little private thing for that for our members somewhere.
If I don't have to do anything, I'm happy.
You just have to give me permission to do it. Cool.
Cool. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, I'll take it as a yes.
Articles, I think we just give ourselves permission to not post any articles next year.
Yeah, that was the reason why we wanted to get 12 articles done this year, was because those are really the core elements of what we talk about in our coaching program, in our Unboring Business Roadmap, which is the main thing we sell in our coaching program that people go through.
I just had an idea. Here's the thing that could be worth doing is taking videos from our YouTube channel over time that have done well and
Like the business ones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And turning those into articles
Yeah,
next
possible.
year and
But
making that the
I think we're just
goal.
giving ourselves permission that articles are probably the one thing that's going to come to a full stop. which is
lowest
fine.
on the priority scale.
And it's going to come to a full stop on production, but on Google traffic, it might actually pick up next year
Right.
more than it ever has.
We're on a real 1 year on, 1 year off
Yeah.
article
Yeah.
cadence. It's all strategic,
Sure.
clearly. Instagram,
Social.
social.
This is your category. What does the future of our
Yeah, I
Instagram
don't
look
know,
like?
maybe.
Just in general.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see if I feel like it.
Yeah.
The thing about Instagram is like, it is gravy. It is, as we say in our content salad strategy, it is the dressing on the salad, not the...
You don't put the dressing on the plate first.
You don't put the dressing on the plate first. You put it on after.
People do that.
So I really, really love the flexibility and permission we've given ourselves with social media to not feel beholden to it.
Yeah.
And so if posting photos of our travels and travel content feels creative and energy giving to me, I would love to do that. If it feels energy draining and it takes me out of the experience of travel,
not gonna do it.
Not gonna do it.
You'll find out. All right, so that's our content audit.
That's it.
Well, we hope you go through and do a content audit yourself. Maybe you look at all the different content marketing things you've been doing or you maybe plan on doing. Probably better do what you've been doing. And just take a look at them. Take a look at the metrics that matter to you, to your business, what needs to be tweaked, what needs to be changed. Also, hopefully a lot of the things for us we've talked about, like an article taking 16 months to rank in Google, a reel not going off until it was like, you know, the 16th reel, which is kind of funny, those numbers are the same. You gotta just keep up with things maybe longer than you think to see them work, but as long as you enjoy doing them and the process is something you can stick with that doesn't burn you out, then just keep going.
That's what I was gonna offer is, are there a couple of questions that look at each content channel that you are pursuing right now and ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is it contributing to my revenue of my business? Am I enjoying it? And is there a way that I could make this easier?
Yeah.
I think those are four good questions to ask.
We're gonna have semi-edited those up on screen.
What is my goal?
Oh, you're repeating them now?
And what do I need to do to reach that goal? I added 2.
Okay, great. All right, let's wrap this video up by pulling the subscribe screen over from that side.
Oh, great.
The little
Ready?
thanks for watching. Goodbye, everybody.